Before you become who you are, you must be judged by who you were. Good morning, what is great, good, and real, and God bless. Massively emotional weekend for me, heavy emotional weekend for me. And all I did was continue to be who I said I would be. And I stumbled, if you would, upon this concept. I'm probably going to read something out of the book. I finally finished Pistis Sophia. That'll help as far as the pain associated with what I believe we'll get into, which is your self-trial, when you are sort of the judge, the jury, and the executioner. May sound harsh, and it's because it is. May sound difficult, I believe, because it is. And maybe it isn't talked about often enough, at least from my perception, and how I believe we're going to talk about it today. But before you become who you are, you must be judged by who you were. So let's agree, at least from the perspective of premise and setting a foundation. You, like me, believe that there's something more for you, and you are becoming. And the more for you is self-definable. This means a lot to me. I've been struggling with the channel from the perspective of less is more, having more patience, not just turning the mic on every day for one more like, one more subscriber, but trusting the process. That is more difficult than it sounds, especially when you're in a rhythm and a pattern of daily content creation. And it's not that I don't still create daily. It's just I show less daily, and I have tons of other material in the pipeline. In any event, I'm still becoming that. And that is, if you have a dream, a journey, if you have a message from God, creator, or whomever you believe in as far as your intuition, your conscious creation, subconscious and spiritual passion, that is usually very easy. You want to do these things for all the obvious reasons, but becoming who you are and being judged by who you were expands outside of the dreams and the aspirations as far as labeling yourself with a successful title. And let me not demean or downgrade that potentiality. I think part of the fulfillment process for spirit, consciously and through God, is that you are fulfilled in what you do sort of every day to fulfill yourself through work. If you haven't learned that about me by now, I'm all about work. And I think you should work and then work and then work and then work and then work some more. But in that way, I believe all of it is work. So if you're on the mic, it's work. If you're posting content, it's work. If you're clocking in, it's work. If you're getting paid for it, it's work. All the obvious things. But now the relationships you create, marriage is work. Fatherhood is work. God is work. And just scale that out. Everything you involve yourself in, everything is a relationship. A lot of this too stemmed from, I did some garden work this weekend. Work. To do it in a way that aligns with who I believe I am. Work. Can't cut corners. Work. Got to get into the crevices. Work. Got to get into the root. Work. But if I go back to even this here, becoming who I am, I must be judged by who I was. And the work that you put in front of you to drive your spirit towards a level of success that might have you ascend into the stratosphere of light, however you define that light, can be a distraction to who you also are holistically. Because even when you do this or things like this and you get that business, the entrepreneurship, you become sovereign in a way. I'm not like, I'm cliche Jeff all the time, but the mic can't be on all the time. Who are you when the mic is off? That gets painful because you believe you're becoming who you are. You believe you're putting in the effort, the level of discipline, dedication, the drive. It takes action if you haven't learned. We don't scratch lotto tickets here. You can, but I don't know that that's going to work for you very well, or at least your chances are minimal to close to none. So if you want to put it into perspective, who I'm becoming leaves me massively vulnerable to who I was, and that judgment hurts. Let's slowly start to unpack this thing and get into some of the depth behind it. You're making new choices. Hopefully, possibly, maybe. You should always be making new choices. Evolution, the world, time, it requires you, in order to keep up, at minimum, to make new choices, which implies also you never really left the old choices behind. So when we talk about being judged by who you were, it's always there. It's always prevalent. It's why you decided to become who you are now. And the sprint, the initial honeymoon phase, and the indoctrination into new ways is fun, exciting, and does all the things you would expect when you make a new pivot. That dissipates. And when the new stops being new, the old starts to sort of resurface. Why? It lives inside your nervous system. It lives inside your nervous system. It lives inside your consciousness. It lives inside your spirit, your soul. They walk beside you in silence. So you're making your moves. The new you is matriculating forward, doing phenomenal, sensational things. And the old you is just right by your side, right by your side, right by your side. If for no other reason, when we talk about hate being the protector of love, I don't hate the old version of me. I have fights with him all the time. But I need to reference him to understand why that's a different walk. But he's always there in silence, like, yo, I'll catch you when you slip. So you never really left the old choices behind. They live inside your nervous system. They walk beside you in silence. They hide very quietly behind your wins. And you might call it growth, so you don't have to call it guilt. Understand what I'm trying to say. When you awaken to a new version of yourself and you start to make manifest whatever it is spiritually you want, you can't just blank slate wipe everything from your memory. You don't just get to say, I'm all these virtuous things without realizing it implies the non-virtuousness that permeated your soul previously. You get what I'm trying to say? There is no fulfillment in new spiritual conscious ways without realizing that the soul was very dirty. So I wonder, have you ever realized that you might be punishing yourself through your own healing? That you kept picking the harder path, not necessarily because it was virtuous and noble, but because some part of you believed you deserved the consequence. Okay. I want to get into what I'm learning, right? And I think this is massively important for any sort of conscious or spiritual movement. A lot of this might be tied up in the I forgot to bring water, the death theory, or giving death to your old version, shadow work, things of that nature. But what hit me over the weekend, and what's been hitting me, I just haven't been able to, I don't know if it's reflect consciously on it in a way that is tangible towards what I'm learning and what I've learned, because you learn and you think, that's the power of learning. You reach conclusions to realize there's another conclusion you have to reach. So awakening, like, I'm good now. I'm this, whatever I am. I'm maximizing my relationship with my wife. I'm maximizing my relationship with my daughter. I'm maximizing my relationship with my son. I'm maximizing my relationship with my profession. I'm maximizing my relationship with DYR rules. I'm maximizing my relationship with God. And you feel good about these things. You're making progress. You're taking steps. There's a long path behind you. And then you kind of go quiet and you ask yourself, well, what, remind me, self, Why do we do this? Why do we go so hard in this direction? If I'm suddenly realizing I'm maximizing my marriage, what did that mean for my marriage before? I'll tell you what it meant. It meant that it wasn't maximized. Now go deeper. What weren't you doing? I wasn't present. What was I not doing when I wasn't present? Where was I? So you're healing and I can't do this to myself anymore. And then you realize what you were doing to yourself was not just happening to you. Let's drop the selfishness and the ego. So sure, I hurt me by not effectively behaving as the best version of me physically, spiritually, emotionally, consciously, through God. So my body was destroyed, constantly drinking, overeating, not praying, not focused, no vision, no path, no discipline, no intentionality, no passion. You could fix that in you. But then you ask yourself, well, who was that person that I was affecting? Ooh, yeah. How much pain did you leave inside of your significant other? How much pain did you leave inside of your daughter, your son, the children you were raising? You don't get that back. And then you start to really say, I would never do that now, but I did it before. And then you go through that and you're like, wow, I did that? I did that? So awakening doesn't let you selectively remember. It hands you everything. All the moments you stayed small, all the love you did not protect, all the obedience you misnamed as survival. And then it says, now judge yourself. Now judge yourself. And don't lie this time. Can you sit with that? So when we talk about, I finally finished Pista Sophia. I got something here that's inspiring for us who feel like deep sinners, dark sinners. And I never, I think I stopped just short of the border of things that were textbook egregious. But nonetheless, I'm learning as I judge myself, as I become the greatest version of creation that God allows me to be through consciousness, through spirit, through soul, through love, through my heart, right? That clearly I caused myself massive pain by not being this and doing the things that I did when I was not being the version of myself I needed to be. Ask yourself, you know this. I talk about you can't lie to yourself. And the more you start to break into consciousness, to use it to your advantage, to move strong, the more it wakes you up to say, yo, you remember this? And you might just be coming down the stairs, boiling some eggs, thinking things are all good, and boom, something hits you. You're like, oh my God, I did that. You don't need a sermon, a pastor, a preacher, a Sunday school, a book. You don't need nothing in language that explicitly says that these are infractions, that these are terrible things to do, that these are commandments. You will know because you'll feel it in your heart. You don't even need words. You'll just see what you did and be like, yo, I did that. That was me. That was me. I'm talking about before my son wants to go to the courts. He wants to hoop. I didn't have the stamina for that. He didn't even have the stamina to ask me. He wouldn't dare ask me why. I wasn't in shape to do that. I wasn't in spiritual shape. I wasn't in a loving shape. I wasn't in a nurturing shape. I wasn't in a present shape. He couldn't really ask me to do nothing because I was busy working as late as I had to work, drinking as much as I had to drink, staying out of home as much as I could stay out of home and get away with it. You sit with that. Sit with that. You look at yourself, you look at your body. Me physically, when I reached the heaviest I was, and the just living intoxicated at all times, intoxicated literally off the alcohol, off the overeating, off the indulgences, off of the narcissism, neuroticism, selfishness. Yo, when you don't take care of yourself, you're selfish. You're selfish because you're not strong enough to provide for the people around you. Because you're not strong enough to contribute consciously to the circle you've created to allow you to nurture, mature, and evolve, even just baseline emotionally. It don't gotta be a gazillion dollars. It just gotta be what makes you feel alive when you share life positively with your heart, with love, with God, with somebody else who you can share life with, and you impact them positively. But how you treat yourself, inertia, stagnation, stasis, you don't move, you don't think, you don't expand your consciousness. You forgot what you're even doing to yourself. When you overindulge and you're out of shape for life, more than physical, you don't realize in your micro movements, your thoughts, you can't think any stronger in solution than the strength that you know you are as mind, body, and spirit. You understand what I'm trying to say? Your mind, body, and spirit has a strength level. And you can't think deeper than that strength level. Why? Because you know you can't make it. That's how we get stuck in jobs that we don't desire to be in. Barely making enough to pay the bills. You're not paying the bills with monetary value, spiritual value, emotional value. You're in debt in the entirety of your existence. Now, if you haven't awakened to that, you might not see that. You awaken to it and you make a lot of moves and you realize you put so much debt into the previous version of you. It has so much to tell you about who you used to be. Sometimes you can't get past that neither. So you quit. That's real. You hit that Staples button. You just want to make it easy and quit. Part of me switching up and trying to make less content in order to make it more powerful gives me massive time to think about, yo, am I quitting? Nah, I just got to reposition my energy. I just got to refocus. Even if it's cleaning the yard, cleaning the basement, making sure there's no trash laying around, all these things. Making sure I can go to the courts, making sure my daughter got what she needs, making sure I'm there for my wife, making sure I'm protected provider. If for no other reason, I don't want to think in 10 more years and think about all the things I still didn't do. All the moments you stayed small, all the love you didn't protect. Who are you not protecting love for? Likely yourself first. Because if you can't love yourself, treat others as you want to be treated. You mistreat yourself. That means and implies you're mistreating others. Here's some solace I took that helped me to, regardless of where you might feel. I feel personally the understanding consciously and the virtuousness with which I want to now live and that I push myself towards, and the prayer and the meditation and the conversations with God, being almost nauseated by who I used to be and how I used to behave, and judging myself. I think I judge myself sometimes to the point where, you may not feel as if there's any value in you left. I think that's for me powerful, and I think possible, that because of how we're labeled, and I believe mislabeled, because of how static labels appear to be, as if life is not dynamic, like you can't shed that label. Yes, you used to be egregious. Yes, you can now be full of love. Yes, you used to be the worst, most terrible sinner by definition in the world. Yes, now you can be the most God faithful, honorable, and loyal person in life. But it doesn't take away, of course, all those other years of non-commitment to yourself. So some of us might feel like we've lost so much of a self-commitment that it's not really, why do I, I just need to stay where I'm at right now. It's never gonna, no. I say, if even for a day, if you could just, if you have one day to be who you wanted to be, not in like status and label, just in full loving spirit, just God sense. Give yourself that one day. Let me just read this, right? So this is Pistis Sophia. It's a book with Jesus. It's not the traditional Jesus, at least not in the sense of, I think culturally, the way we've been taught it. But I think powerful in that this was apparently written after he resurrected, right? So John had, this is like one of the last pages of the book. It's actually the second to last page of the book. They're going through, Jesus is trying to offer them light, offer them light, offer them light, and explain to them the realms of judgment and chastisement and what the soul goes through when it's being washed, essentially, and the possibility of receiving the light, which to me implies like the kingdom of God, right? We all have the possibility of light. Consciousness is light. Okay. So John asked, a man who hath committed, oh, let me go back one just really quick, because you think it's some of it is obvious. Okay. John first asked, right? A man who hath committed no sin, but done good persistently, but didn't find any mysteries to pass through the rulers when he come out of the body, what happened to him, or what happens to him? So this is somebody who maybe didn't find God, or maybe didn't find the mysteries of the light, but just did all the right things because they just maybe understood and appreciated instinctively. I'm going to try to do all the right things. They'll find the light, right? Jesus says he'll get the light. They'll rejoice. They'll even show this person joyousness and graciousness and truthfulness and massive light because you did everything right. Okay. So what about, John asks, a man who hath committed all sins and all iniquities, but at last hath found the mysteries of light? Is it possible for him to be saved? This is a man, woman, person who hath committed all sins and all iniquities, but found the mysteries of the light. And Jesus replies, such a man who hath committed all sins and all iniquities, and he findeth the mysteries of the light, and performeth and fulfilleth them, and ceaseth not, nor doeth sins, will inherit the treasury of the light. Why do I think it's significant? I believe, specific to what we're talking about today, is that at some juncture, you can ignore and have ignorance, which is ignorance, towards the light as much as you want. And I think, all right, it's just flagrant ignorance. You just never woke up. You went into autopilot. You got stuck in a conscious generational loop of poverty, however it is. And you could never break free, none the wiser, right? But now, anybody who is maybe like me and gone through their trials and has awakened to realize, yo, I was just being a basic piece of shit for a long, long time. First and foremost, once seen, it can't be unseen. I don't think there's any turning back. How could you turn back? How could you know what you think you know for you, that only you know and only you have to express, understand, and share with God, and then go back? You can't. You can't. You can't. You can't. So one of the things I consider when I start thinking about who I used to be and the things I used to do, I go through the process of, let me do it again. Do that with yourself. It's an exercise, mentally, spiritually, psychologically. I think, oh my God, I did that. If I did it again, how would I feel? I'd feel terrible. And then I start to realize, yo, I don't think I felt that terrible back then. How could I? Because why would I repeat it? Label whatever it is you did. The lack of presence, the lack of commitment, the lack of faith. You can't have, it's why I say you can't be conscious of what you're thinking if you're stuck. Why? You would unstuck yourself. So you're not thinking, you can't be thinking and staying there. So when you start to think, when you start to be conscious, and when you go into, you feel it, like you get into the heart and the soul and you feel it, there is no going back. But you'll dream about it. You'll sit down in silence and it'll hit you. It'll overwhelm you like a tsunami of massive emotion. and powerful drawbacks. Like it's almost indescribable what it feels like to return to what you used to be. And then you judge yourself over and over and over and over and over. And then you secretly ask yourself, yo, could I really do this again? So you can't lie. The answer is, consequently, I know not to do these things. I respect God and the world enough to know that temptation is awfully difficult to overcome. And so I practice all the time, ensuring that I don't submerge or submit or die in the type of things that I would judge myself for again. That's the power of judgment. If you know you're going to assert yourself in a direction and you go through the process of judging yourself and you put yourself on trial and you commit, you're convicted. Well, don't return for the same crime. You got to live with what it is that got you to waking up. And then you got to leverage it to understand that it's not about that. It's not me. It is me, but I don't want to return there. Yes, you can walk on my side. Yes, you can hop on my back. I'll carry you. I just can't indulge in you anymore. I just can't indulge in you anymore. So all the moments you stayed small, all the love you didn't protect, all the obedience you misnamed as survival, judge yourself and do not lie. Do not lie. Don't run. Don't blame. Don't perform. Peace. You got to sit in the courtroom with self. You got to feel the sentencing. Because on the other side of that judgment is the authority, your authority through God to rewrite the law. It's okay that that was you. And it is okay that it is no longer you. And it is okay that you will never be that again. And it's okay that it's lost. But it certainly would not be okay to continue to lose, to continue to commit, to continue to stay buried in what you know you no longer want for yourself. You own it or be owned by it. You either run the system or the system runs you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.